Hey, it's Kim here from the TSS. One of the most important skills in bracket racing is understanding your track position and working out as early as possible in a run whether you're going to get to the finish line first, or you're going to get to the finish line second, or it's too close to call. The earlier you know what's going to happen at the finish line, the more time that you have to adjust your finish line strategy or to execute the best strategy given the current track position. So how can you use the TSS to train your brain to understand track position and therefore be able to make better decisions at the finish line? Well, the best way to do that is to use the generate feature, which we've discussed in the previous video. You'll see that down here, the generate. That allows us to create a time slip. So I'm going to use myself as an example. My car over the 8th mile typically runs around 5.95 seconds. Now in the class of racing that I'm in, the quickest opponent I'll race runs 5.4 seconds and the slowest can dial in at 7.0 seconds. So what you can do, and I've set up this time slip here, so this one here is I'm in the left lane and the quickest opponent I can face is in the right lane. This is a dead heat. Now the reason I do that is that, so when we simulate the run, when we reach each of the increments, 60, 330, the position of my opponent will be such that where it's a dead heat. So when I'm actually racing and I come up against, for example, a 5.4 second dialed opponent, are they where I expect them to be on the track, or are they in front or behind of that position? So if they're in front of that position, then I'm probably going to finish second. If they're behind where I think they should be, then I'm probably going to finish first. And the earlier we know that in a run, the better. So let's just have a look at that in action. So I'll press simulate. I'll turn that off, go over to the left lane. So this is me, there's the opponent. So I've got point of view 1 selected, so I can just look around and I right click to look at my opponent. I'm going to turn my mirror on and I'm going to turn, what's important here is to turn the auto pause on for the left lane, because I'm in the left lane. I want it to pause at exactly the 60, 330, the mile an hour cone. So let's hit play and we'll get to the 60. Pause. So my opponent has just started. Probably nothing to see at this point. Let's run it out to the 330. Okay, stop here. So look at my opponent. So now I'm trying to take a mental picture of where they are. So at 330, if we're on a dead heat run, that's where I expect my opponent will be. And if I press resume, let's get to the mile an hour cone. Once again, look over my shoulder. Now this is where I expect the opponent to be at the mile an hour of cone. And then we play it through to the finish line. So what I'm doing here is building a mental picture. So when I'm running a 540 opponent, that's where I expect them to be if we're on a dead heat. And then I can adjust my strategy if they're in front or behind those positions about how I'm going to drive the finish line. So resume. I'll turn the mirror off. Stop. Now let's look at it from the other extreme. So this is against a 7-second opponent. And I'm still dialed my 5.95 here. So we'll simulate this run. Once again, I'm point of view in the left lane and I'm auto pausing the left lane. And there's my opponent over there. So let's press play. We'll go out to the 60. Now that I'm behind, I've got my opponent in my field of view. So at 60, that's what the race looks like when it's a dead heat against a 7-0 opponent. Let's run it again. Once again, take a mental picture. So I can also zoom in and zoom out just using the mouse wheel. So there's my opponent there. Let's resume. Let's get to the mile an hour cone. Okay, that's where they are here. And then resume. So there's two extremes of looking at it. So we had us against a 540 opponent and a 7-0 opponent. So for training purposes, what you can do is you can set a typical ET for yourself, and then go through a range of increments. You might go 540, 550, 560, so on and so forth, to the point where you have built up a library of runs that you can use for training purposes. And then during events, go through them just like you would with the practice tree. You're practicing your reaction times. Practice your understanding your track position. And that's one of the great features of the TSS is your ability to practice between events what your situational awareness, if you like, and your track position compared to your opponents, and build up a mental picture of where you think they should be. And if they're not there, then how can you change your strategy, or what strategy should you implement at the finish line?